Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back in with another, just a quick lesson on the term candlestick, because it's used in many, many places in the Bible, and just how, it's a coded reference, for these UFOs, and then how they have these beams, okay, a cylindrical beam that will emanate, from the center of it, and then some of these UFOs even have lights around it. I'm going to read that in Zechariah 4. But this is the amazing thing about Christ's language, and then when he's speaking in Matthew 5, which I'm about to read, that he's conveying many layers, and then he's communicating things on a deeper level. And then the fact that, I understand it is telling, and then I think that it's an amazing gift that, I'm reading the Bible now in the last couple of years with greater clarity, and I think that that's an incredible thing, that there's a lot of double meaning, and triple meaning. And then the double and triple meaning at times is sometimes even more important than the foundational, message that's being stated. And then in particular, it applies to the last days. Okay, and that's what I'm going to read here. Matthew 5:14, ye are light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. And so this again reaffirms that, and this in verse 14, which is a coded number oftentimes for God's elect, is that God's Spirit dwells in his elect. Okay, so the world is being illuminated on the earth through his elect. Okay, and ultimately by the 144,000. That's why that's in verse 14. And so that's where God, quote unquote, dwells. Okay, on earth. Just know that. Okay, and so that's a very, very literal statement that God's elect are the light of this world. Okay, they're the illuminated ones. Okay, because they know the truth. And Romans 11:7, and then Revelation 7, and then I could list many that, their mind is illuminated, okay, by God about things of God, and that's an amazing thing just to think about. The election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded, okay. And so if you're blinded, that's another word to think about darkness. You can't see, okay, but this group can see, okay. Ye are light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. So it's impossible for them to not proclaim certain truths, okay, that they give credit to God, for giving them. Verse 15, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, okay. And so this reference to candlestick is where it's double meaning, to the last days. So it's talking about a man on a candlestick, okay. And so again, if you imagine a UFO, okay, with a bowl on top, which I'm about to read in Zechariah 4, and then a beam down the middle, that the way the Bible describes that is a candlestick, okay, in Zechariah 4. And then I want people to know that's the coded reference here, okay. So if you put a man on a candlestick, then at the end of that candlestick, what's at the top? It's the UFO, okay. And that's what salvation, when Christ says he's going to raise up a group on the last day, that's literal, okay. And it's going to be in a cylindrical beam going up into one of these UFOs. And so that's what it's saying here in verse 15, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick. Okay, so if you have a cylindrical beam and you're on top of it, you're in a UFO. Okay, and so this is referring to salvation. This is in Matthew 5:15, 5:5. Okay, it's a spiritual number for God's elect. Okay, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Okay, and so that's an incredible thing, and so just know that oftentimes we read these verses and we think, okay, they're going to go and, be a light to the world. And that's true. Like I read in verse 14, but verse 15 is talking as well about the last days. So it's layered. Okay. Not everybody can get it. Okay. But the elect have obtained it. Zechariah 4:2, and said unto me, what seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold. Okay. With a bowl on top of it. So if you have a candlestick, which is like a beam, a pipe, okay, and then a bowl on top of it, that's referring to the UFO, okay? And then the beam is this light, okay, that a person is going to be taken up into, God's elect, okay, into a so-called UFO, manned, quote unquote, manned by an angel, okay? And so just know that, okay? That's also what's being referenced here. And so that's what we know now, okay? So UFOs, these so-called chariots, are absolutely central to the Bible, and of course central to the end times and salvation. These are the clouds that are being referred to when Christ returns. When he returns on a cloud or with clouds, it's in these so-called UFOs. Okay, and we call them UFOs just so the world understands what we're talking about. For us, they're IFOs. We've identified them as God's chariots, okay? And so being commanded by Christ himself or his two witnesses or the angels, okay? And just know that, and we're going to get a reference to that right here, okay? I'll read it again, verse 2, Zechariah 4:2, 4:2 or 2:4 backwards is 24, 44, okay? And so this is talking about an event in the last days, which I believe can happen any day now. Verse 2, and said unto me, what seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold. So this one's special. It's all gold, okay? This beam, this pipe, okay? With a bowl on top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are upon the top thereof. So these are pipes, these beams, these cylindrical beams, lights around it, okay? But this one is of gold, so it's a special one, okay? And 2 olive trees by it. So on either side, it has these quote-unquote 2 olive trees, okay? Or these 2 men on either side of the banks in Daniel 12, which is a lesson I did recently, okay? And 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl and one upon the left side. That's Moses and Elijah, okay? And so just know that, okay? This is what's being referred to in Revelation 11 and Daniel 12 and everywhere, okay? And Acts 1:10-11, okay? This is Christ with this golden candlestick with a bowl on top, okay? Which is where the person will be manning the UFO. And then it'll have like a bowl on top, and then it'll be a disc, okay? And then a beam shooting down from the middle of it. And the Bible calls that beam, the end of the beam, the UFO, but the beam is the quote unquote candlestick, okay? So not all the time necessarily, but a candlestick, certainly in Matthew 5 and then Zechariah 4 is referring to a UFO, okay? And what it's able to accept a person, you know, through the middle of it, okay? That's an amazing thing. And that's going to be the vehicle and method of salvation, okay? Just know that. We know that now. So that's what is that's what's being referenced in Matthew 5, and that's why it's just a coded reference, okay? And so any other person will read verse 15, Matthew 5:15, 5:5, okay? Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick. It's talking about a man being put on a candlestick, okay? Which is, again, going into one of these UFOs. And it giveth light unto all that in the house. And so God's elect are essentially the illuminated ones, okay, on earth. And it's a relatively small group, you know, and I'm making a very, very bold claim that I'm one of them. And there's not many seats. So I'm very, very aware how that can sound. But it's for a group to understand. And then we have to be able to prove it, okay, by explaining people things of the Bible that are subtle, okay, and that we cannot explain unless God tells us what also is being said, and if it's double, triple meaning, and that kind of thing. And so Matthew 5:15 is referring to the end times and salvation, supported by Zechariah 4, that it's describing a so-called UFO, okay, which are the chariots of the Most High. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.